Good day, ladies and gentlemen. We thank God for another opportunity to meet together again. Our topic today is the history of English in Nigeria. Some of us might be wondering, how come with the plethora of languages we have in this country, we still stick to the foreign language, which is English language, the language of our colonial experience, as the language of official imperatives. This is the essence of today's lecture, the history of English language in Nigeria. I will just give you a brief overview since it's a course on its own in the university, but it has been added as an appendix to your own course of study. Therefore, we will not go too deep into it. However, you should have a basic understanding of what led to the use of English language in Nigeria today. Now, the historical development of the English language in Nigeria is linked to three key factors. Number one is trade expedition. Number two is missionary adventurism. And the third one is colonial experience. Trade expedition, missionary adventurism, and colonial experience. Let me begin with the trade expedition. Historically, the presence of the English language dates back to the early incursion of European merchants in search of raw materials to power their industries back in their own countries. It was during the Industrial Revolution age, or the age of Industrial Revolution, where a lot of machines and gadgets were in place, but these white communities needed raw materials to be able to make shoes, to be able to make bags, a lot of things, food items, and other luxuries, just to make life comfortable for their citizens. So most of them had to go to distant places. Some of them traveled as far as several continents and kilometers away from their own countries. So they came to the continent of Africa. Now, these trade merchants were in search of raw materials, not to look for who to colonize. One of the first reasons that brought them to the continent of Africa, they used to call it the continent of black people, was that they needed raw materials to power their industries. And when they came to the land of Africa, they saw both natural and mineral resources in massive quantities, in mind-blowing quantities. Talk about crude oil, rubber plantations, and agricultural products, and other items scattered across the continent of Africa. So with these raw natural and mineral resources in abundance, the trade merchants saw an opportunity they've been waiting for, and therefore pitched their tent with the black people of Africa. Now, this economic exploration, the need for economic exploration, was what brought them to the soil of Africa. Not religion first, and not colonialism. They needed raw materials to be able to power their industry, to be able to make life comfortable for their fellow human beings as business people then. So now, when they got to the communities, the communities of the natives and local people, there was the problem of language barrier. Now, they needed to do something because they saw gold, they saw bitumen, they saw copper, and other items. And this was so fascinating to them that they couldn't just resist going back without taking advantage of these items. And unfortunately or sadly enough, those people whose backyards these items, these raw materials were found, didn't understand the value of what they have at the backyard, at their backyard, or close to at their disposal. Lo and behold, but there was a need for what? To communicate with the locals, so that they can be granted access to what? Explore the ground. Some of these geologists. So with that in place, the white man now did something funny. They introduced what they call trade by barter. So they asked for the head of each community, and maybe the obas or the emir or the igwe or the council of elders, and approach them using sign language to tell them that we are here to negotiate with you with what you have with us. Some of the white men brought whiskey, gin, mirror, so many funny items, just because they needed the raw materials at the backyard of these locals. And those people, of course, the Africans didn't understand the value of what God had deposited at their backyards. Allowed the white man, collected the gin, collected the mirror, collected the whiskey, and tasted it, and it tasted good in their mouths. So they gave the white man a free chance to explore the ground. And of course, trust the white man and exploit the ground to their maximum advantage. At the end of the day, they left because there was a ship waiting at betted at the port, waiting to, and all these items were loaded in massive quantities, and they were taken back to their own countries. So this was at the initial stage it was trade by barter. So when they were coming back, they knew that if they give money, if they presented their currencies to these people, it will not be of value to them. So they wanted something that would fascinate the locals and make them feel at home with them, so that they'll be able to have access to what they needed. That's the first one. Then after some years, there was what they call the transatlantic slave trade. After some years that these massive quantities of raw and mineral materials were taken off, they saw the black people were empty men and beautiful ladies among the locals. So they thought in their head that why not let's bring these people into our home countries as indentured labor to work in our industries, so that we can produce mass quantity within a short period of time. And that was what led to what? Slave trade, the era of slave trade. So now when they came back to collect the slaves, they now saw they still use the same method to talk to the locals, the heads of each community, giving them fake promises of how these young men and women will be of value to them in their faraway countries, and would also be a form of exchange between the local community and the foreign countries. So the head of the community had to release several young men and women into the hands of these slave trade merchants. So trade expedition was what brought them to the continent of Africa in the first instance. Then, after some years, the economic exploration and human transportation to the economic exploration and slave trade era continued for many years. I think the slave trade era started in 1807 and continued like that till 1948. But what is most important, what is most significant about this period was that there was nothing like communication, and there was nothing like the use of language, because the white man could not speak the language of the locals. In the same way, the locals do not understand the language of the white man. Even the presence of the white man in the community sent a lot of people hiding into hiding places. So After some years, some Christians, some Muslims in other countries, in other continents, relied on the reports brought by these trade merchants to them that there is a particular black continent, no light, no road, mosquito everywhere. They painted the continent of Africa as bad and horrible to survive in. In fact, they even said it to the point that those people in the black continent were worshipping idols. So this worship of idols caught the attention of missionaries in those countries like the UK and in Portugal and the rest of them. So they thought of, okay, some of them were spurred by the Holy Spirit to come down to the continent of darkness, to bring light to the continent of darkness. Their primary goal is to evangelize and convert the locals, to move them away from the worship of idolatry to the worship of the true living God, which is the God of the white man. Because to them, in their imagination, how could someone be worshiping trees, spring, and they call it Oshun, trees? They call it they worship iron and thunder. Some people there are different deities in the communities of Africa, in the societies around the African continent, worshiping different deities and gods. We have the Amadioya, we have the Oya, we have the Shango, we have the Eshu, we have the Oshun, and the rest of we have the Obatala. We have several. We have the Ogun worshippers. We have the Shango worshippers. These were progenitors of these communities. But the white man felt, no, we have to take the work of evangelism to the black people. So they came to the continent of Africa with the mindset of converting these unbelievers, in quotes, unbelievers, doomed to end up in hell. When they came to the continent of Africa, they also faced, in the 19th century, they also faced a similar problem. And what is the problem? How to communicate with the locals, how to preach to them, how would the locals be able to read the Bible or the Quran. So, but these missionaries did something interesting, unlike the trade merchants, who were only here to explore and exploit the people, who only came to explore and exploit the people. Now, the missionary did something fascinating. They established schools. They just went to the head of the community and said, please, can you spare some expanse of land to build our worship centers, and we don't mind if you can join us in our worship. Therefore, that was how the work of evangelism started on the soil of Africa in the 19th century. So these missionaries built churches and established schools in their attempt to spread the gospel of Christ to pagans. To them, these pagans would go to hellfire if they were not given the message of Christ. So those schools were meant to train people on 3 R's: read, write, and arithmetic. Read, write, and arithmetic. Now, what that means is that the locals should be able to read and write and calculate in the English language, the language of the white man. So the missionary did start, and that was why today you could hear many missionary schools around the country as far back as 18th or 19th centuries. We have the CMS, we have the St. Finbar's, we have the Bobby College. All of these were just small schools. So they got expanded over time. They became expanded over time because of work. So as the work of missionaries were continuing, so the children would go to school in the morning. Of course, the parents were skeptical about the white man's religion that had just come to the community suddenly from God knows where. But the white men were able to convince the local people to allow their children to come to the school to learn how to read and write. But at the back of their intention is that these children will grow up to become Bible teachers, interpreters, and evangelists, and then pastors. So that at the time when the white man is living in some years' time, these children would have become adults who can read Bibles, then read to their parents, interpret to their parents, and place them as head of churches. So that was the beginning of the introduction of English language to the locals. So those children were allowed, because there were a lot of missionary schools, particularly in Lagos, in Abeokuta, in Calabar, purely for evangelism. Okay, so by the time the children started attending this school in piecemeal, so those ones that were attended, there were teachers from abroad brought into the local communities, maybe Lagos, Abeokuta, or Port Harcourt, or in the east, to teach these children that have been willingly released by their parents to come and learn the English language. Then the last but not the least is, as these people were learning and as they finished their primary school, they were taken abroad to go and learn better how to speak the English language better in the government school back in the white man's country. Then after some time they came back. I wonder and even some of those slaves that were taken abroad then as slaves already had basic knowledge of the English white man's language. So that was how the English language started spreading gradually among the Africans. Then over to the colonial experience. Then it got to a point when the white man felt, these resources in the black continent, the people there do not even understand the use. Let's go and take over the environment. So they came with their guns and their weapons and with their smiles on their faces to introduce their government. And when they came with their government, they came with the courts. So the court system fashioned along the Western court system, which is against the local court system. So some of the locals and the heads of communities resisted the presence of a white man government on their land. So while some accepted willingly, while some were skeptical. Now those that accepted the white man's government in their communities were spared. Those that were skeptical were threatened, and those that rejected outright the presence of the white man's government were either exiled, imprisoned, or killed. So there were a lot of examples in history. Just because of the shortness of time, we just have to look at what happened in brief. So some of these people that rejected the presence of the white man were killed or imprisoned. So the white man forcefully imposed his government on the people. That's why it was labeled colonialism. Colonialism in the sense that it wasn't the free will of the people. It was imposed on them. So when the white man succeeded in establishing his government in the land of Africa, colonialism began. Now, one terrible thing about colonialism is that they took over the space of the locals, dictate when you go out or started asking you to pay tax and the rest of them, because some of the locals now understand the language of the white man. So it became easier for the white man to be able to lord this over the locals through those who can understand the white man's language, to go and talk to the locals. Taxes were forced on the people. A lot of people were maltreated and using the court system. So constitutions were established. I'm sure you have heard about McPherson Constitution, Richard Constitution, Nixon Constitution, and the rest of them. All these constitutions were targeted at establishing the forceful imposition of the white man's language in the land of Africa. So today, the language of the white man. It became an educational policy in Nigeria for English to become an official language, not by free will of the people, but by a legal framework established in the court system, in the white man's court system. Now, ever since then, the English language has been serving its purpose, the official purpose. Now, what are the functions of the English language in Nigeria today? Now, one of the things that actually inspired the white man to do what they did was because of the multilingual nature of Nigeria. Within two near communities, we discovered that there are about six or five different languages. So there are in general, over 400 languages were spoken across the country in Nigeria. So the white man needed, for his own administrative convenience, needed to impose a language that the locals will speak, and when they are speaking it, the white man can hear and understand. So, and that course, the white man course system was used to achieve that. So, given the multilingual nature of Nigeria, it became imperative for the need for a unifying language becomes what? Imperative. So, this is one of the reasons that the Nigerian government granted an official status to the English language. So, today, English language is the language of commerce and industry. Commerce and industry is vital to the growth of Nigeria's economy, no doubt. Given the significance of this sector to the nation's economy, all business transactions are written, recorded, and documented in English by the practitioners. When meetings or seminars or conferences or symposia are organized by practitioners, these periodic events are conducted in the English language. Activities of international trade, either import or export, and signing of international treaties are also conducted in the English language. English language is also the language of communication during trade fairs and project exhibitions, whether at local, regional, or international levels. Then English language also became is also the language of the media. The media play a very significant role in the advancement of any society. The media inform, educate, and entertain the public on events happening at the moment or that took place in the past. So they also keep public abreast of government programs, policies, and activities using the English language. So they entertain the public by using, especially through the use of movies, music, or sporting activities. All of these are done using the English language as a preferred medium of communication for media practitioners. English is also the language of law. You see, the English is the language of law practice in Nigeria in the sense that legal drafting is compiled and documented in English. Disputes are part of our lives as human beings. So court decisions and pronouncements are done in English. Court proceedings and communication are done in English. The provisions in the Nigerian Constitution are written in English. Adjudication of justice is administered by a presiding judge in English. So the interpretation of legal documents by members of the judiciary is usually done in English. Another function of the English language in Nigeria is that is the language of science and technology. Science and technology has transformed the human world, including Nigeria, no doubt about that, from primitive stage to a more sophisticated stage. Since English is the official language in Nigeria, it has become the language of science and technology. Okay, besides, the advancement and gradual spread of science and technology is possible in Nigeria today due to the use of English. English is also the language of education. English is the bedrock of modernization, no doubt about that. In Nigeria, English is the language of instructions from the preschool stage to tertiary level. Besides, English is offered as a subject in Nigerian schools today. A pass in English is also one of the requirements for gaining admission or getting into tertiary institution of learning or getting promotion in your place of work. So, government educational policies mandate that English should be offered by students as a GNS course in higher institutions of learning. Another point is English is also the language of government. No matter the locality or the state, English is the language by which your president communicates with the nation, the governor communicates with the state indigenes, and the local chairman communicates with the locals in the communities. So it has become the language of federal, state, and local governments. So official and public institutions relate with Nigerians using the English language. So even when relating with foreign government and when relating with foreign government, English language becomes imperative. Annual budget of the government are compiled and read to the public in English. English is also the language of research. Finally, research is critical to national development. English is also the language doing what? Doing training and research. Conferences in Nigeria, research proposals, grants, and grants in aid are recorded in English. With this, at this point, we have been able to see that English is a vital language to unifying us as a nation. Apart from the relevance in our educational, media, and government institutions, it also plays a role in helping us to achieve our dreams by gaining admission, by getting promotion, or by whenever we travel outside the country, we use the English language. So we cannot say in totality that using the English language is bad. However, we must also understand that the English language today is part of our lexicon by three main reasons: trade expedition, missionary adventurism, and colonial experience. Thank you. Now, please feel free to like and share my video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll be waiting for your questions at the comment section. Thank you.